Welcome back to Crowned Black Heroes, where we uncover the stories that changed history but were nearly erased from it. Today, I'm going to tell you about something that happened in a hospital emergency room that defies everything you think you know about hate, humanity, and redemption. This story is so powerful, so unexpected, that when you hear how it ends, you'll understand why some moments in history deserve to be remembered forever. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we bring you these incredible untold stories every single week. And if this story moves you, leave a like and drop a comment telling me what you think. Now, let's dive into one of the most remarkable encounters between a black nurse and a Klansman that literally changed the course of both their lives and sent shockwaves through an entire community. It's a sweltering summer night in rural North Carolina in 1996. The emergency room at the regional medical center is unusually quiet, the kind of quiet that experienced nurses know never lasts long. Sharon McKnight, a 42-year-old black nurse with nearly 20 years of experience, is reviewing patient charts when the automatic doors burst open. Paramedics rush in with a man on a gurney, his face contorted in pain, his body convulsing. He's in the middle of a massive heart attack, and every second counts. Sharon immediately shifts into the clinical, focused mode that has saved countless lives over her career. She doesn't see race in these moments. She doesn't see politics or history or prejudice. She sees a human being dying, and she has the skills to prevent that death. As the medical team works frantically, cutting away the man's shirt to attach monitors and prepare for emergency intervention, something falls from his clothing onto the sterile white floor. It's a wallet, and as it hits the ground, it opens to reveal a membership card. But this isn't a gym membership or a library card. It's a Ku Klux Klan membership card, complete with the organization's insignia and the man's information clearly visible. For just a fraction of a second, time seems to stop. Sharon sees it. Another nurse sees it. The room is small enough that this revelation, this identity, hangs in the air like a toxic cloud. Here, on this gurney, gasping for breath and teetering on the edge of death, is a man who belongs to an organization that has terrorized, murdered, and brutalized black people for over a century. An organization that would have celebrated Sharon's suffering, that would have denied her humanity, that even in 1996 still represented the absolute embodiment of racial hatred in America. Sharon's grandfather had been threatened by the Klan in Mississippi in the 1930s. Her mother had lived through the civil rights era, when Klan violence was at its peak, when black churches were bombed and children were murdered and activists were dragged from their homes in the dead of night. The Klan wasn't ancient history to Sharon. It was family trauma. It was generational pain. It was the monster that had stalked her people for generations. The other nurse in the room, a young white woman named Jennifer, looks at Sharon with wide eyes. There's a question hanging between them, unspoken but deafening. What are you going to do? Hospital ethics are clear. Medical oaths are sacred. But this is also a moment where the abstract meets the viscerally personal. This isn't a hypothetical scenario in a medical ethics textbook. This is a man whose organization would have happily seen Sharon dead, now completely dependent on her skills, her knowledge, her compassion to survive the next crucial minutes. Some of you watching might already be thinking about what you would do in this situation. Would you help? Would you hesitate? Would the weight of history and personal pain make your hands shake as you reached for the medical equipment? Hold that thought, because what happens next is going to challenge everything you think you know about human nature. Sharon McKnight doesn't hesitate. Not for a second. Her hands move with the practiced efficiency of someone who has dedicated her entire adult life to the singular purpose of saving lives. She calls out medication dosages, adjusts the IV drip, monitors the man's vitals with intense concentration. When his blood pressure crashes, she's already preparing the necessary intervention. When he begins to code, she's there with the defibrillator, shocking his heart back into rhythm. For the next 45 minutes, Sharon fights for this man's life with every ounce of skill and determination she possesses. She doesn't do it grudgingly. She doesn't do it with resentment simmering beneath the surface. She does it with the full commitment of someone who understands that the content of her character will be measured not by how she treats those who love her, but by how she treats those who hate her. The man survives. When he's finally stabilized and moved to the intensive care unit, Sharon is exhausted, her scrubs soaked with sweat, her hands still trembling slightly from the adrenaline. Jennifer, the younger nurse, approaches her in the break room. "Sharon, I don't know how you did that," Jennifer says quietly. "I saw that card. I know what it meant. How did you not just walk away?" Sharon is silent for a moment, staring at her coffee. Then she says something profound, something that cuts to the very heart of what it means to be truly committed to your principles. She says, "If I had walked away, if I had let my justified anger and pain override my duty as a nurse, then I would have become what he thinks I am. I would have proved that his hatred was somehow rational, somehow justified. But more than that, I took an oath. That oath doesn't have an asterisk. It doesn't say I'll save lives except for people who hate me. The moment I start picking and choosing whose life has value based on their beliefs, I've lost something essential. I've lost my own humanity in the process of judging his. Now, in most stories, this would be the end. The nurse saves the racist's life, demonstrates moral superiority, and we all feel inspired by the power of professional ethics overcoming personal pain. But this story doesn't end there. In fact, what happens over the next several days and weeks is so unexpected, so transformative, that it becomes something much bigger than one nurse and one patient. It becomes a story about the possibility of actual change, real redemption, and the complicated, messy truth that people are capable of both enormous evil and surprising growth. Are you still with me? Because this is where the story takes a turn that nobody, including Sharon herself, saw coming. The man's name is Larry Griffin, and when he regains full consciousness 2 days after his heart attack, he's told by the attending physician about the extraordinary efforts that saved Vade. His life? He's told specifically about Sharon, about how her quick thinking and expert care prevented what would have almost certainly been a fatal cardiac event. Larry asks to see her. The hospital staff is uncomfortable with this request. They've all heard about the Klan card by now. Hospital gossip travels fast, and this particular piece of gossip is too inflammatory to stay quiet. The head nurse suggests that perhaps it's better if Larry simply recovers and is discharged without any further interaction with Sharon. But Sharon, demonstrating the same courage she showed in the ER, says she'll meet with him. She's curious, she later admits, curious about what kind of man joins the Klan in the 1990s, decades after the Civil Rights Movement, in an era when such open affiliation with a hate group is increasingly stigmatized, even in the rural South. She enters his room expecting anger, defensiveness, or perhaps embarrassed silence. What she encounters instead is tears. Larry Griffin, this 47-year-old white man with a Klan membership card in his wallet, is crying. When he sees Sharon, he tries to speak, but can't seem to find words. Finally, he manages to say, "I know who you are. I know what you did." They told me you saved my life. Sharon nods, her expression neutral, professional. Larry continues, his voice shaking. I also know that you saw my card. You knew what I was, what I believed, and you saved me anyway. Sharon responds simply, I'm a nurse. It's what? I do. But Larry shakes his head. No, he says. You don't understand. You should have let me die. I've spent 23 years of my life hating people like you. I was taught that hatred from the time I was a boy. My father was Klanned. My uncles were Klanned. In my town, in my world, it was just what you did if you were white and wanted to belong. And I never questioned it. I never thought about what it meant or who it hurt. I just carried that hatred like it was normal, like it was right. Sharon listens, her face impassive, but inside she's experiencing a complicated storm of emotions. Part of her is angry. This man is trying to excuse decades of hate by blaming his upbringing, and that feels like a cop-out. But another part of her recognizes something genuine in his distress, something that sounds like actual remorse rather than performative guilt. Larry continues, when I woke up and they told me what happened, who saved me, I felt something I haven't felt since I was a child. I felt ashamed, deeply, completely ashamed. You treated me like I was worth saving when everything I've believed and done says that you're not. That reversal, that complete inversion, it broke something in me. Or maybe it fixed something that's been broken my whole life. What happens over the next few weeks is documented in hospital records, local news reports, and later in Sharon's own testimony at various speaking engagements. Larry Griffin doesn't just express remorse in private. He begins a very public process of transformation that shocks his family, alienates his former friends, and ultimately puts his own safety at risk. While still recovering in the hospital, he asks Sharon if she would be willing to visit him regularly, not as his nurse, but just to talk. Sharon is skeptical. She's seen plenty of deathbed conversions and hospital revelations that evaporate the moment someone returns to their normal life. But something in Larry's desperation touches her, so she agrees to limit it. Visits. During these conversations, Larry reveals the architecture of his hatred. He talks about growing up in a small town where the Klan wasn't seen as a terrorist organization, but as a social club. A networking group, a way to assert white identity in a region that felt economically and culturally left behind. He describes how the Klan gave him a sense of belonging, of purpose, of superiority that compensated for his own deep insecurities and lack of achievement. He admits to participating in intimidation campaigns against black families who moved into certain neighborhoods. He confesses to spreading propaganda, to teaching his own children the same poisonous ideology, to contributing money to organizations that fought integration and civil rights advances. Sharon listens to all of this with a clinical detachment that occasionally cracks, revealing the pain underneath. At one point, she asks him directly, "Why are you telling me this? Are you looking for forgiveness? Because I can't give you that. I can't absolve you of what you've done." Larry responds, "I'm not looking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm telling you this because you need to understand what you did. You didn't just save my life in a medical sense. You revealed to me that everything I built my identity on was a lie. If you, a black woman who had every reason to hate me, could see my humanity when I was at my most vulnerable, then how could I continue to deny yours? How could I go back to meetings where we talked about you and people like you as if you were less than human? You performed an act of grace that I never could have imagined, and it destroyed my ability to maintain the hatred. It just collapsed. The whole structure of it collapsed." Sharon is moved by this but remains cautious. "Words are cheap," she tells him. "What matters is what you do when you leave this hospital. Do you go back to your life and your Klan meetings and convince yourself this was just an emotional moment? Or does something actually change?" Larry's response is immediate and firm. "Everything changes. I promise you, everything changes." But Sharon has heard promises before, and she's not convinced. She leaves the hospital room thinking this was an interesting psychological experiment, but ultimately, just another example of someone saying what they think you want to hear in a moment of vulnerability. She doesn't expect to hear from Larry Griffin again. But 3 weeks later, Sharon receives a phone call that changes her assessment. It's from a reporter at the local newspaper. The reporter wants to interview Sharon about an extraordinary letter that appeared in that morning's edition. In a full-page paid advertisement, Larry Griffin has published an open letter to the community. In it, he announces his resignation from the Ku Klux Klan. He details his 23 years of membership. He apologizes specifically to the Black community for the harm he's caused, the fear he's perpetuated, the hatred he's spread. And he tells the story of Sharon McKnight, the Black nurse who saved his life, despite knowing exactly who and what he was. He describes the experience as a moral reckoning, a confrontation with the reality of his own evil, and a moment of clarity about the fundamental equality and dignity of all human beings. He concludes the letter by stating that he will spend the rest of his life working to undo the damage he's caused and to fight against the ideology he once embraced. The letter causes an immediate firestorm. In Larry's community, the reaction is hostile and swift. He receives death threats from his former Klan associates. His house is vandalized. His wife, who did not share his transformation and is humiliated by the public nature of his renunciation, files for divorce. His adult children refuse to speak to him. He loses his job at a local manufacturing plant where the foreman is also Klan affiliated. Essentially, Larry Griffin loses everything. His social network, his family, his livelihood, all of it disappears in the wake of his very public break with white supremacy. Some people believe this is exactly what he deserves. Others, including some in the Black community, view his suffering with a mixture of satisfaction and discomfort. This is justice, some say. Let him feel a fraction of the pain he's inflicted on others. But there are also those who wonder what it means when someone genuinely tries to change, genuinely tries to make amends, and is destroyed. In the process, Sharon herself is conflicted. When reporters contact her, she's careful in her statements. She confirms the basic facts of the story, but refuses to characterize Larry as either a hero or a victim. "He's not a hero," she says firmly. "He's a man who spent decades promoting evil and then, through a combination of circumstances and perhaps divine intervention, was confronted with the consequences of that evil. What he's doing now is not heroic. It's the bare minimum of human decency." But she also adds, "I do believe his transformation is genuine. And I think there's something important in that. If we believe that people are irredeemable, that someone who has embraced hatred can never truly change, then we're essentially saying that grace and growth are impossible. That's a hopeless worldview, and I refuse to accept it." Over the following months, Larry Griffin makes good on his promise. He begins speaking at churches, community centers, and schools about his experience. He doesn't sugarcoat his past or try to minimize his actions. Instead, he offers himself as a cautionary tale, a living example of how ordinary people can be seduced into extraordinary evil through a combination of cultural conditioning, economic anxiety, and the human need for belonging. He's not polished or charismatic. His talks are often uncomfortable, filled with long pauses and visible emotional struggle. But there's an authenticity to his testimony that resonates with people, particularly young white men from similar backgrounds who are being recruited by modern hate groups. Sharon eventually agrees to appear with him at some of these events. Together, they present a powerful contrast: the nurse who embodied professional excellence and moral courage, and the former Klansman who experienced transformation through her act of grace. Their joint presentations become sought after by organizations working on racial reconciliation and extremism prevention. But the story takes yet another unexpected turn about 8 months after Larry's initial heart attack. Sharon receives a phone call late one evening. It's Larry, and his voice is urgent, frightened. "Sharon, I need your help. They're planning something. My former associates in the Klan. They're planning to target a black church in the county. I heard about it through people who still think I'm one of them, who think my public renunciation was some kind of trick or strategy. They're planning to burn it, Sharon. Just like the old days. And I think I know when." Sharon's first instinct is to call the police immediately. But Larry explains that he has no concrete evidence, just overheard conversations and vague plans. The police won't act on that, especially not in a county where law enforcement has historically had complicated relationships with white supremacist groups. He needs to get more information, but he's terrified. If his former friends discover that he's actually turned against them, that his transformation is real, he'll be in serious danger. The Klan doesn't forgive traitors. What Sharon does next demonstrates a courage that goes far beyond her professional duties as a nurse. She agrees to help Larry gather evidence that can be brought to the FBI. This isn't medical care. This isn't about saving a life in an emergency room. This is about actively confronting evil, putting herself at risk to prevent violence against her community. Over the next 2 weeks, Larry reconnects with his former associates, pretending that his public renunciation was indeed a strategic move, a way to deflect law enforcement attention. He wears a wire provided by federal agents. He attends meetings in isolated locations where men discuss their plans with shocking casualness. As if planning to burn a church full of black worshippers is no more significant than organizing a barbecue, the recordings Larry makes are chilling. They reveal not just the planned attack on the church, but an entire network of coordinated hate group activity across 3 states. When federal agents finally make arrests based on Larry's evidence, they dismantle one of the largest active Klan networks in the region. 17 people are arrested and eventually convicted on various charges, including conspiracy to commit arson, civil rights violations, and weapons offenses. The church that was targeted, Mount Zion African Methodist Episcopal, holds a special service after the arrests to give thanks for their deliverance. Sharon is invited to attend. So is Larry, though his invitation is more controversial. Some members of the congregation don't want him there, believing that his presence defiles their sacred space. Others argue that his actions, his willingness to risk his life to protect theirs, demonstrates a transformation that deserves acknowledgement. The church's pastor, Reverend James Morrison, makes the final decision. Larry Griffin will be welcomed, the Reverend announces, not because he deserves it, not because his past is forgiven or forgotten, but because our faith teaches us that redemption is possible and that God's grace extends even to those we think are beyond its reach. If we claim to believe in transformation, we must be willing to witness it, even when it makes us uncomfortable. The service is emotional and tense. When Larry enters the church, there's visible discomfort. This man was their enemy. This man supported and participated in an ideology that has brutalized and murdered their ancestors. And now, he's standing in their sacred space, asking for nothing but the chance to be present. Reverend Morrison preaches that day about the parable of the Good Samaritan, but he inverts it. He talks about what it means when the Samaritan saves the person who hates him, when grace flows upward from the oppressed to the oppressor. He acknowledges the difficulty, the almost impossible demand of such grace. But he also speaks about Sharon, about her decision in that emergency room, and how one act of professional integrity and moral courage set off a chain reaction that ultimately saved lives and dismantled a network of hate. This is the power of being faithful to our principles, even when it hurts, the Reverend says. This is what it looks like when we refuse to become what we oppose. After the service, something remarkable happens. One by one, members of the congregation approach Larry. Some simply nod. Others shake his hand. A few embrace him. An elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson, whose brother was murdered by the Klan in 1960, stands in front of Larry for a long moment. The entire church seems to hold its breath. Then she says, "My brother's name was Thomas Patterson. He was 22 years old when they took him. He was just trying to register voters." Mrs. Patterson's voice cracks. "I've hated the Klan my entire life. I've prayed for their destruction. I've wished suffering on every person who wore that hood. But standing here today, looking at you, I realize that maybe the greatest revenge against hate isn't more hate. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's you standing here, transformed, working to undo what you once built. That's something the men who killed my brother could never take from me. The power to extend grace, even when it's not deserved." She doesn't embrace Larry, but she does place her hand briefly on his shoulder before walking away. Sharon watches all of this from her seat in the pew, tears streaming down her face. Later, she tells reporters that this moment, more than anything else, confirmed for her that her decision in that emergency room was right. Not because it felt good, or because it was easy, but because it opened a door to possibilities that hatred and vengeance would have permanently closed. That doesn't mean racism is solved, or that centuries of trauma are healed by one person's transformation. But it means that transformation is possible, that the arc of the moral universe, to quote Dr. King, really can bend toward justice if we're willing to do the hard work of holding people accountable while also leaving room for genuine change. The story of Sharon McKnight and Larry Griffin spreads far beyond their small North Carolina community. It's covered by national news outlets, becomes the subject of a documentary, and is eventually taught in medical ethics courses and conflict resolution programs around the country. Sharon is invited to speak at nursing conferences about the challenge of providing care to people whose values you find abhorrent. She's always careful to contextualize her story. This isn't about forgiving racism or minimizing the harm that white supremacy has caused and continues to cause. She emphasizes, this is about the specific ethical commitments of healthcare professionals and about the complicated question of what we do when someone who has caused tremendous harm genuinely seeks to change. There's no easy answer. Every situation is different. But I do believe that our response to people like Larry, whether we choose grace or justice or some combination of both, reveals something essential about who we are and what kind of society we're trying to build. Larry continues his work as a speaker and advocate against extremism. He never remarries. He remains estranged from most of his biological family, but he builds a new community of sorts, people engaged in similar work of rehabilitation and prevention. He's not celebrated or famous. Most people who hear him speak are uncomfortable with his story because it doesn't fit neatly into categories of hero or villain, redeemed or condemned. He's something messier and more human than that. A person who did terrible things, who experienced a profound moral awakening through an unexpected act of grace, and who is spending the remainder of his life trying to balance an equation that can never truly be balanced. How do you make up for decades of hate? How do you repair damage that extends across generations? The answer, Larry often says in his talks, is that you can't. You can't fix it or undo it, but you can refuse to keep adding to it. You can work to prevent others from making your mistakes. And you can bear witness to the truth that change is possible, even when it seems impossible. Sharon and Larry maintain a relationship that defies easy categorization. They're not exactly friends. The weight of history and the reality of Larry's past actions create a barrier that true friendship can't quite cross. But they're not strangers either. They're bound together by an experience that transformed both of their lives. By a moment in an emergency room where the principles of human dignity and professional ethics collided with the darkest aspects of American history. They speak together a few times a year. They exchange emails on significant dates: the anniversary of Larry's heart attack, the anniversary of the church that was saved. And they both grapple with the complicated legacy of their story, the way it's sometimes used to minimize ongoing racism, or to suggest that black people should be infinitely forgiving of white supremacy. That's not the lesson, Sharon insists whenever she hears this misinterpretation. The lesson isn't that oppressed people should always extend grace to their oppressors. The lesson is that I made a choice to be faithful to my professional ethics and my personal values, even in an extraordinarily difficult moment. And that choice had consequences I never could have predicted. It opened a door. But walking through that door, doing the hard work of actual transformation and justice, that was Larry's choice. Both things matter. My act of care and his decision to genuinely change. You can't have the transformation without both. As of today, Sharon McKnight is retired from nursing. She spent 38 years in the profession, saving countless lives, training new nurses, and embodying the highest standards of medical ethics. She's now a grandmother and spends most of her time with her family, though she still occasionally speaks about her experience when invited. Larry Griffin is in his 70s now, his health declining from years of manual labor and the lingering effects of his heart attack. He still speaks when he's able, though less frequently than before. The church he helped save, Mount Zion AIM, thrives. It's become a center for community organizing and racial justice work. It's near destruction and owned miraculous preservation becoming part of its identity and mission. The story I've told you today raises questions that don't have simple answers. What do we owe people who hate us? What does it mean to be faithful to our principles when those principles demand that we extend care or compassion to people who would deny our humanity? How do we balance the need for accountability and justice with the possibility of redemption and change? Different people will answer these questions differently, based on their own experiences, values, and circumstances. There's no single right answer. But what Sharon's story demonstrates is that our choices in moments of moral crisis reveal who we are at our core. Sharon could have walked away from Larry Griffin in that emergency room. Many people would have understood and even supported that choice. But she didn't walk away because she understood something profound about the nature of principles. They're only meaningful when they're tested, when they cost us something, when upholding them goes against our immediate interests or desires. This story also reveals something about the nature of racism and extremism. It's easy to think of white supremacists as monsters, as fundamentally different from ordinary people. And in some ways, that's comforting because it means we don't have to confront the reality that ordinary people people shaped by their families and communities and economic circumstances can embrace and perpetuate terrible evil. Larry Griffin wasn't a monster. He was a man who was socialized into hatred, who found belonging and purpose in a toxic ideology, and who never questioned the foundation of his beliefs until he was forced to confront them in the most personal way possible. That doesn't excuse what he did. But it does complicate our understanding of how hate works and how it might be dismantled. If ordinary people can be recruited into extremism, then ordinary people can also leave it. But that requires creating pathways out, creating spaces where transformation is possible without requiring people to be destroyed in the process. I want to be clear about something before I finish. This story is not an argument that Black people or any oppressed group should always forgive or extend grace to their oppressors. That's not what Sharon did, and it's not the lesson here. What Sharon did was maintain her professional integrity in an impossible moment. What Larry did was accept the challenge that moment presented and worked to genuinely transform his life. Both of those choices mattered. And the community, the church, the people who had been targeted by Larry's hatred, they got to make their own choices about how to respond to his transformation. Some extended grace, others maintained their distance. Both responses are valid. What this story offers is not a prescription for how to respond to racism, but rather an example of what becomes possible when people commit to their deepest values, even in the most challenging circumstances. Before I go, I want to ask you to do something. Take a moment and think about your own principles, your own values. What are you willing to stand by even when it costs you something? Even when it's uncomfortable or difficult? Even when it goes against your immediate emotional response? We all face moments, maybe not as dramatic as Sharon's, where we have to choose between our principles and our pain, between our ideals and our immediate interests. How we navigate those moments shapes not just our individual lives, but the kind of world we create together. Sharon McKnight made a choice in an emergency room in 1996 that rippled out in ways she never could have imagined. What choices might you make that could have similar ripple effects? If this story moved you, if it challenged you, if it made you think differently about grace, justice, redemption, or the complicated work of fighting hatred, then I need you to do a few things. First, hit that like button. It helps this video reach more people who need to hear stories like this. Second, subscribe to Crowned Black Heroes and turn on notifications, because every week we bring you stories of remarkable Black individuals whose courage, brilliance, and humanity changed the world but were nearly erased from history. And third, I want to hear from you in the comments. What would you have done in Sharon's position? Do you think Larry's transformation was genuine? How do we balance accountability with the possibility of redemption? These are hard questions, and I want to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a real conversation about this, because these questions matter. They matter for how we navigate our own lives and for the kind of society we're building together. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being willing to sit with a complicated story that doesn't have easy answers. And thank you for being part of this community, where we explore the full complexity of Black history and Black experiences. Not just the simplified versions, but the real, messy, challenging, inspiring truth. I'll see you in the next video where we'll uncover another story that deserves to be told. Until then, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep fighting for a world where everyone's humanity is recognized and valued. Peace.